Tools that I like to bring out here to install. We have our slide hammer here, which is detachable. And so this one has two pieces. So this is the hammer part, and it's threaded right here. So you can screw it into the post part here. And so it has this threaded piece that is removable. So you can, if you mess this piece up, you can add another one. It's pretty standard threading, and it takes an Allen key, so you can tighten it in here. I also have with me here a fiberglass rod. So this one is 5 feet long, and this is what we attach all of our sensors to and put it in the hole. And so for the slide hammer, I just have a couple of wrenches. You can use, if you have the proper sized open wrench, or you can use vice grips, and you can use any kind of adjustable wrench if you want to, just to kind of get it tight. It'll kind of loosen up sometimes when you're hammering, so you want it to be tight and flush with the bottom so you're not hitting on the threads. I have a little handsaw here, so many times when you can't get this all the way in the ground, you'll have to cut it at some point, and I found just a small handsaw like this is the best, and it doesn't split it as much, so we'll use that probably today. Measuring tape, of course, for measuring out our depths on here, and also have our handy dandy electrical tape that we'll be using to attach all the sensors onto the pole. Phillips head screwdriver for the box, and that's about it. I do have a large metal zip tie that we'll use at the very end. And so this is our sensor box here, and it's pretty simple construction, just a electrical box here that I've outfitted with a data logger on the inside, and it's a 4-channel data logger made by Onset. And so I've got 4 wires coming out of the box here, and you can see just on the inside here we have just our data logger. Also, I've attached on this one a battery pack. So here's the data logger, here are 4 channels, and then in the back, this usually takes AAA batteries, but I've put some dummy batteries in here, and then I've attached a AA battery pack here, so it'll last a lot longer out in the field. And so yeah, I got these wires coming out here, and I have these little cable glands here, and so right now they're loose, so we can pull the cables through, but at the end we'll tighten them, but they will provide a watertight seal. And I also have this, just a little box here that we're going to pull tight so we can kind of protect the cables so they don't get chewed. We've got some flexible metal tubing here, and of course the cables are all neatly tied up here, and these are the thermistors at the end right here. And so that's kind of an overview of what we have for tools. Not too much, it's pretty simple and mostly straightforward out in the field. And so next we can, I guess, choose our site where we want to put our box. I think we've already chosen our spot over here. So we're going to attach this, put this together. So it's pretty straightforward. It can be kind of difficult with a weight, so you can, however you feel comfortable putting this on, but yeah, sometimes it's good to have an extra pair of hands. But yeah, threading it's pretty easy. I put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads too, just to keep them clean and keep it from sticking on you. Definitely helps in the threading process too. So it's kind of handy to have this detachable, so if you're out in the field you can carry it a little easier. They also make them where they don't break away here. Make sure these threads are tight up here. There's just 2 washers up here. That kind of keeps this slide hammer from shooting out on you. And you want to make sure it's not super bent. Make sure it's still straight, which if you're hammering in rocks, it can kind of cause that. So if you're in a rocky terrain, just kind of be aware of when you're hammering, just to make sure you're not actually just twisting it, because we've had that happen in the past in some rockier spots. Okay, let's go over to our spot here. So kind of depending on the ground you're working with. You know, if it's rocky, you probably won't have a lot of organic material on top, but if you have a nice mossy surface, you want to take your shovel and kind of cut out a square around it and remove that gently. So we can do that next. Here's our shovel. Yes. We do have a shovel. So let's see, right here. Yeah, there might be some roots here. It's a good rooty spot. I don't know if we're gonna get through this, so. Don't know if this is gonna come up or not. Oh, finally got through. Okay. Yeah, plenty of organics here. There we go. Okay. So if you have anything you can put your organic plug on, it's usually pretty helpful. So if you have a bag, or I usually carry a plastic bag with me just for this reason, so you can put it on something and kind of keep it together as you pull it out. So okay. I just want to take it out and just put it like that, face down. And if you got any other material that falls in, you can kind of collect it and keep it together. Okay, that's good. All right. So we've got our hole, we got our organic layer right here taken out. So we're down to just mineral soil. We can take our slide hammer and place it in our hole. Make sure everything's really nice and tight. Put a wrench on it if you have to. Check everything. And if you're sensitive, if your ears are sensitive, it's really a good idea to put some ear protection in, because this thing can be pretty loud. It's good to have eye protection too, just in case. And I like to wear gloves just to protect my hands. And of course, good sturdy boots. So kind of the trick with this is you want to pull it up and then throw it down. You don't want to be hanging on to this when it hits down here, because it'll vibrate pretty tremendously and it'll hurt your hand. So it's more of a throwing down motion, so you can I want to at this point check, because it'll usually move a little bit. Make sure you're still vertical. You don't really want it to go sideways. I think I'm gonna grab my pliers here. All right. Just to make sure it's tight. There. Feels better. So ideally this will go all the way down into the ground, and typically we go as far as we can, but if you can't get as far, like in this case, we'll just stop here and say we hit a rock or it's not going anymore. Then we can take the slide hammer out as we catch our breath. And process is a little different, but depending on how frozen the ground is, it may just come up, it may not. You may have to put a little force into it, but practice good posture. Make sure your back is, you're not pulling with your back. I usually get a lead with my legs, so I'll kind of bend down and do it like that. Also, make sure if you're wearing any rain gear or coats or anything, keep it from right here. Same with fingers, of course, but yeah, this will put a nice hole punch to your clothes. I speak from experience. There we go. All right. So we made our hole. We're not sure quite how deep it is. So what we can do is take our fiberglass rod. We can put that about that far. And if you've got your electrical tape, you can use a Sharpie if you've got a marker handy. Use anymore. But yeah, you can just take some electrical tape. And about here. And so. And we also want to know roughly where our surface here, so we also want to mark that. This will be important in determining the depth of our sensors. So that's about where, okay. There, so we have depth of our hole plus all of this organic material here. So this will be surface and this is our depth of our hole. So take our tape measure, we can see we have about, made it down about 95 centimeters. Okay. And total depth hole is 110. All right, so now that we know the depth of our hole, we can start to add our sensors. What were the depths that you wanted to do for this?
One of them, 50, 20, and
surface. Okay, so these are marked. I marked them with a Sharpie back when I calibrated the sensors. They're marked on both ends with dashes, so you have 1 dash for channel 1, 2 for channel 2, and so forth. And typically just what we will do is we'll take number 4 as our deepest sensor, and that one goes on the bottom of our pole here. And it's pretty simple and straightforward. I lost my tape. There it is. All right. So this is top, this will be bottom, channel 4, and it's pretty simple. Just take some electrical tape, and the sensor portion will be at the end. So we stick that at the very end of our fiberglass rod and give it a few wraps. So for this will just be our bottom depth, which was 95 from here, and then 110. And then we'll measure from here. We'll do a depth of 50 centimeters, 20 centimeters, and then our final sensor will be our surface sensor. So for taping these, you just kind of want to keep them somewhat close to our rod so they don't stick. So you can just add an extra quick wrap, keep the cables nice and tight. And typically you'll have to probably pull out some of our cables a little bit, depending on how far they're out of the box. So you can kind of give them a little tug. If not, with these, they kind of like to stick inside of the housing here. So you want to lay it out kind of straight, not in sticks. So we need to pull probably just a little bit more to reach the end. If not, you know, you can leave them. It depends on how deep your hole goes. But in this case, we'll be cutting our rod here anyway. So with this length, it's okay. But if it was all the way, we'd have to pull out some more cable. So in this case, we can actually pull some in. But for now, we have enough to work with. And so we get our tape measure now that we have everything laid out. So the depth was, let's see, 95. Okay. It's always good to double check your measurements here. So this sensor will be at 95 here. So here's the top of our rod once we cut it.
You measure from the surface.
What's that?
You measure from the surface.
Right. Oh, well, okay. You can do it either way, but yes. So if you want it to be 110 here. Okay. So we had about here. There you go. Okay. So we have 50 centimeters right here, so we can take channel 3, which is our next deepest sensor, and we'll tape that there. Okay. So keeping everything nice and tight, lined up, 50 centimeters here. Just take our tape. There. Good. And we look for channel 2. Let's see. Okay. And if you're not sure if the marks get rubbed off, you can always check on the other end of the box, because they'll be marked on the other side too, and you can kind of pull one through and follow it, and then you'll find it. Sometimes the Sharpie will get rubbed off. That's why it's good to check. So we have our 20 here. Okay, and then we find our last sensor here. There it is. This one will be our surface, so this one doesn't get taped to our rod. That one will be left out. Alright, so now that we have everything here, we can cut our rod here before we put it in the hole. Makes it a little bit easier. So just have this little small hacksaw here, and you can really get it started and snap it off if you have to.
You can mention this in between those two marks.
What's that? Sorry.
Between the bottom of the hole and the surface, anywhere. So you can cut it off.
Yeah, so this will all be underneath our organic layer too, so you can cut it anywhere between here. It's fine, it'll be buried. The key is we just don't want it sticking up out of the ground. So, yeah, make sure this is all nice and tight. And yeah, obviously keep the wires clear. Okay. So we have this all cut, but we have a lot of extra cables, so everything's kind of a different length. And this is where you kind of have to do some cable management with the box. And it's kind of helpful to have someone else at one end of the box and the other. Usually you won't be doing this by yourself, so I'll have my assistant help me. This is Dimitri. So I'm going to have him at that end, and he's going to be managing the cables down here, and I'm going to be in the box, and I'm going to get all the cables out. So usually they're going to be kind of wrapped up. In this case, we're just going to be pulling them in, but if you needed to pull more slack out, you'd have to undo all of these and keep them as straight as possible because they won't go through otherwise. So
Okay. I'm pulling on this cable.
you have that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to look for that one. Okay. I found it. I think I found it. There it is. So we're just going to take out any slack we have here. Okay.
Sorry.
Good. All right. Okay. I feel it. So we're just going to pull that back. Okay.
And the surface.
Surface. Okay. Okay, I see it. All right. It's good. Okay. So we have all of our cables more or less together. So once we have that, we can kind of pull them all together. Good. How's that?
Maybe a little bit more. So
Save a little bit? Okay. How's our, okay, yeah. Leave the sensor that's for the surface about 8 to 10 inches long. Okay. All right, so we've got everything where we want it. We can keep this all kind of back together in the box. Keep it neat. Mostly neat. Okay. Battery pack. Great. So everything looks really good. Now we're ready to take the whole apparatus over to our hole. So we'll take our box. So you kind of want to figure out where you want to take your box. Typically we'll put the box on a tree if there's a tree nearby. So you want to make sure you have enough length, which I believe we should have just about to at least make it to one of these trees. So I'll just kind of lay it out over here. for now, and then find our hole. There it is. And we just press it down, and there's our tape mark right there. Okay. So as you can see, we have everything kind of firmly in place. We want to make sure that we have our conduit below surface so we can bury it. And then, let's see, you want to do this after we put the plug in? Okay, we can put the plug in now.
Huh?
We can put the plug in now, that's good.
Maybe we can make a trench.
Oh, we can do the trench first, yes. Let's do trench first. Okay, so I'll move our slide hammer out of the way here. This is another one of those steps that typically requires 2 people. We grab our... So what we're going to do is we're going to take the shovel and we're just going to follow our conduit here, and we're just going to take our shovel and put it, make sure that the surface sensor is nowhere near this when you do this.
And no hands in the trench.
You don't want to put your hands anywhere near the shovel. It's kind of imperative. Okay, so I'm just going to take it here. Here, we'll cut on this side here. Okay. Get through. Okay, and you can see he's just using the wrench to hold that down while I pull the shovel out here. Okay. You kind of just open up the hole. He pushes it down. I can. Okay. And I'm just going to keep doing that here, this side. So there you go. Okay. It's good. Okay. And so we'll do this trench all the way to the end of our box, about right here, just to kind of bury it, and then you can kind of cover it up with sticks and make sure it's kind of pressed down on the ground. So we'll do just that much. So next we have our sensor here. And with this, you can take your plug here and carefully put it. Sorry? You want to do sensor first? Yeah. We do both. So it's kind of good to make sure everything's good and buried. No cables are sticking up. This is all buried. And we have a little bit of here, just a little bit of slack. So this, you don't want to shove it down into the ground or anything. You just kind of want to put it just underneath the organic layer, because this is measuring surface temperature. So we want to just keep it close to the top here, just so no critters will find it. Cover up our hole here. Okay. Okay. So we're done with the hole. Everything's installed. Our sensors are good. We've made our trench all the way to our box. And then the rest of the work will be done getting the logger set up and started, and then we can check to make sure everything is good before we leave the site. So